We're doing an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge by the Emerald Spears now.
A man stood upon a bridge in northern Alabama, looking down to the swift current 20 feet below. The man's hands were behind his back and his wrists bound with a cord. A rope loosely encircled his neck. It was attached to a stout cross timber above his head, and the slack fell to the level of his knees.
At a short remove upon the same temporary platform was an officer in the uniform of his rank, armed. He was a captain. The man who was engaged in being hanged was apparently about 35 years of age. Evidently, this was no vulgar assassin.
The sergeant turned to the captain, saluted, and placed himself immediately behind the officer, who in turn moved apart one pace. These movements left the condemned man and the sergeant standing on two ends of the same plank.
If I could free my hands, I might throw off the noose and spring into the stream. By diving, I could evade the bullets and, swimming vigorously, reach the bank, take to the woods, and get away home.
As these thoughts were flashed into the doomed man's brain rather than evolved from it, the captain nodded to the sergeant. The sergeant stepped aside.
As Peyton Farquhar was a well-to-do planter of an old and highly respected Alabama family. Being a slave owner, and like other slave owners, a politician, he was naturally an original secessionist and ardently devoted to the Southern cause.
No service was too humble for him to perform in the aid of the South. No adventure too perilous for him to undertake if consistent with the character of a civilian who has a heart of a soldier, and whom in good faith and without too much qualification ascended to the least part of the frankly villainous dictum that is all fair in love and war.
One evening, while Farquhar and his wife were sitting on a rustic bench near the entrance to his grounds, a gray-clad soldier rode up to the gate and asked for a drink of water. Miss Farquhar was only too happy to serve him with her own white hands. While she was gone to fetch the water, her husband approached the dusty horseman and inquired eagerly for news from the front.
The Yankees are repairing railroads and are getting ready for another advance. They have reached Owl Creek Bridge, put in order and built a stockade on the north bank. The commander has issued an order, which is posted everywhere, declaring that any civilian caught with interfering with railroads, bridges, tunnels, or trains will be summarily hanged. I saw the order.
How far is it to the Owl Creek Bridge?
About 30 miles out.
Is there no force on this side of the creek?
Only a picket post half a mile out. On the railroad, a single sentinel at the end of the bridge.
Suppose a man, a civilian and student of hanging, should elude the picket post and perhaps get the better of the sentinel. What could he accomplish?
I was there a month ago. I observed that the flood last winter had lodged a great quantity of driftwood against the pier at the end of the bridge. It is now dry and will burn like tow.
The lady had now brought the water, which the soldier drank. He thanked her ceremoniously, bowed to her husband, and rode away. An hour later, after nightfall, he repassed the plantation, going northward in the direction from which he had come. He was a Federal scout.
As Peyton Farquhar fell straight downward through the bridge, he lost consciousness and was as one already dead. From this state he was awakened, ages later, it seemed to him, by the pain of a sharp pressure upon his throat, followed by a sense of suffocation.
The intellectual part of his nature was already faced. He had the power to feel, and feeling was torment. He was conscious of motion.
Then all at once, with terrible suddenness, the light above him shot upward with the noise of a loud splash. A frightful noise was roaring in his ears, and all was cold and dark.
The power of thought was restored. He knew that the rope had broken and he had fallen into the stream. To die hanging at the bottom of a river, the idea seemed to him ludicrous.
He opened his eyes in the darkness and saw above him a gleam of light, but how distant, how inaccessible.
To be hanged and drowned, that is not so bad, but I do not wish to be shot. No, I will not be shot. That is not fair.
He was not conscious of an effort, but a sharp pain in his wrist apprised him that he was trying to free his hands. The cord fell away, his arm parted and floated upward, the hands dimly seen on each side of the burning light. He watched him with a new interest as one and then the other pounced upon the noose at his neck.
They tore it away and thrust it fiercely aside.
Put it back, put it back.
His whole body was racked and wrenched with an insupportable anguish, but his disobedient hands gave no heed to the command. They beat the water vigorously with quick downward strokes, forcing him to the surface.
He was now in full possession of his physical senses. They were indeed preternaturally keen and alert. Something in the awful disturbance of his organic system had so exalted and refined him that they made record of things never before perceived.
He had come to the surface facing down the stream. In a moment, the visible wheeled slowly round, himself at the pivotal point. He saw the bridge and his executioners.
Suddenly he heard a sharp report and something struck the water within a few inches of his head, spattering his face with spray. Attention company, shoulder arms, ready, aim, fire!
Farquhar
Dived as deeply as he could.
As he rose to the surface, gasping for breath, he saw that he had been a long time underwater. He was perceptibly farther downstream, near to safety.
The officer will not make that Martinez error a second time.
A rising sheet of water which curved over him, fell down upon him, blinded him, strangled him.
The cannon had taken a hand in the game.
They will not do that again. The next time they will use a charge of grape. I must keep my eye upon the gun. The smoke will apprise me. The report arrives too late. It lags behind the missile. That is a good gun.
Suddenly he felt himself roll round and round, spinning like a top.
Objects were represented by their colors only.
Circular horizontal streaks of color. That was all he saw.
In a few moments he was flung upon the gravel at the foot of the left bank of the stream, and behind a projecting point which concealed him from his enemies.
All day I traveled, laying my course by the rounding sun.
By nightfall, he was fatigued, footsore, and famishing.
The thought of his wife and children urged him on.
My neck was in pain, and lifting my hand to it, I found it horribly swollen. My eyes felt congested. I could no longer close them. My tongue was swollen with thirst.
Doubtless, despite his suffering, he had fallen asleep while walking, for now he sees another scene. He stands at the gate of his own home.
As he pushes open the gate and passes up the wide white wall.
He sees a flutter of female garments. His wife, looking fresh and cool and sweet, steps down from the veranda to meet him.
Ah, how beautiful she is.
As she springs forward with extended arms, as he is about to clasp her,
He feels a stunning blow to the back of his neck.
A blinding white light blazes all about him with a sound like the shock of a cannon.
then all is darkness and silence. Peyton Farquhar was dead.
His body, with a broken neck, swung gently from side to side beneath the timbers of Owl Creek Bridge.
The end.
All right. What are your names again?
White Green. Jack White.
Lucky Davis.
Ellen Harmon.
All right, you guys forgot to say that at the beginning. Good job.